And we are live. Greetings, greetings, family. Welcome, welcome. We are here for another week of JMMB Goal Getter Live. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching us live or watching the replay. We're happy to have you here for another awesome discussion. Of course, we always invite you to drop a comment, tell us hi, tell us where you're watching from. We are happy to have you as always. We see Mika was the real MVP tonight. She came up first in from YouTube. Hey, Mika, thanks so much for dropping in early. Richardo, one of our main men. I can't say main man because it make some people jealous. But Richardo, thank you so much. Hey, Raquel. Hey, Shanique. All of our MVP people dropping in nice and on time. Thank you so much again for joining us, guys. Hi, Fel. Thanks for watching. So, we had a very interesting week last week. If you're following the order of how we've been doing these lives, last week was home acquisition week. We did 2 lives in 1 week. Still trying to recover. We were on for 2 nights last week where we were discussing various matters and issues surrounding the goal of home acquisition. It was an awesome discussion. We had our attorney, Stuart Stimson, on what first, and then on the second day we had our realtor Howard Johnson Jr. and Jerome Jarrett, one of our client partnership managers, joining us to help us to navigate through everything we needed to know about acquiring a home or property. And there were some fabulous discussions. And guys, now we are in, last week Wednesday would have been the 1st of July. Now we are in what could probably be termed as the first official week of July. Summer is here, y'all. I think just about all the schools are now closed, right? Prep schools, primary schools. I know that high schools really are largely closed, but we know our CSEC and our CAPE friends are still slugging at it because unfortunately, your exams had to be delayed because of COVID-19 and all of what that would have done to class attendance and so on. But guys, we're encouraging you, we're rooting for you to keep pressing through. But for the most part, summer is upon us. And of course, a big question a lot of people have asked is, okay, summer canceled. Did COVID cancel summer? A. And B, what are some of the options that we have? Hey guys, hey Derval, Lati Samoya, love to see it. So guys, yes, drop us a comment. Tell us where you're watching us from. Say hi. And of course, tell us if you have any plans for the summer. What are you looking to do for the summer? Because hey, guys, it's going to be a hot summer. I mean, I see articles about perhaps some rain coming our way. I don't know, boy. Some of us not too optimistic about that. We may get a sprinkle here and there. But it's definitely going to be another hot summer. We're known for that in Jamaica. And the question still is, how are we going to have a nice summer just the same as best as we can while keeping safe? Because guys, of course, JMMB, we're standing for the greatness of everybody. We're not going to encourage anything that's going to go against all of what is healthy, all of what is good, and certainly what is within the protocols that have been outlined by the government. We want everybody to stay nice and safe, okay? But at the end of the day, we recognize that we want to have fun. And so we're having that discussion tonight. Hey, Ingrid, what's up? We're having that discussion tonight where we're going to talk about not only fun ways to do summer, fun and safe ways to do summer this year, but also on a budget. Because again, let's face it, guys, ain't nothing going on but the rent. We need to find a way to continue to manage those dollars. Again, we recognize that COVID-19 would have hit a number of us in the pockets, and we still want to have a good and safe summer. So how can we do that on a budget? That is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So a little twist on the topic. We're not going to be talking about investing and savings and loans today, but that's okay. JMMB, we're about the full person. We're going to be talking about how to have fun on a budget this summer. Hey, guys. Hey, Steve, what's happening? Just left Bermuda, landing in Florida. Wow, yes, please stay safe. Florida got a lot of COVID-19 going on up in there, it sounds like. So, yes, guys, tell us what plans you have for the summer. Remember to bring in your family and friends. Call, text, WhatsApp, DM, share the link. Tell them to join us right here. We're going to have a fun and interesting discussion. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, Derval is saying yes. I think he meant heat is an understatement. Yeah, it's going to be hot. Hey, Aston, what's happening? Thanks for joining. So, guys, we have an awesome guest who's going to take us through the discussion here tonight. We found her online primarily. She is a blogger, but I'm going to let her go into the details and tell you a lot more of who she is. But yes, she has some awesome tips and nuggets to share because this is right up her street. This is right up her industry. And we're going to bring her up right now. Her name is Tika Samuda. Hey, Tika.
Hi, Carrie. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for answering the call. I guess it's not every day that a company invites you to come on board with one of their live streams to talk about how to do summer on a budget.
This is my very first one, so I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely, and we're happy to have you again. Happy to have you. Great. So, Tika, let's start off. Could you just tell everybody what you do exactly?
No problem. So I am the principal consultant at Being Jamaican. It's a tour company. I personally do like to refer to it as a travel and experience company. We focus on taking people off the beaten path. We go into the nooks and crannies of the island to see the other side of Jamaica. We really want to bring light and to really unveil some of the myriad of attractions that the island has. I think more often than not, we're very focused on a few solid or stable peaks, like a Duns River Falls or the white sand beaches of Negril. But Jamaica has limitless numbers and amounts of beautiful rivers and waterfalls and beaches. And what Being Jamaican does is to try to bring those to the fore, to encourage people to see the many beautiful things that the island has to offer.
Thanks so much for that, Tika. And that's awesome because I think sometimes we know that Jamaica is a beautiful place, a beautiful island. Millions of people come here every single year to relax and recoup and just really have a great time on vacation. But I don't know how many of us as Jamaicans, beyond perhaps the more popular all-inclusive hotels and so on, how many of us really know what exists and how many of us actually take the time and the energy to go and explore what awesome places and nooks and crannies that we have right here in our backyards.
And I think that really is it. Because we are so comfortable with those very strong suggestions of Duns River Falls, we don't often think about a few meters away, a beautiful 18th century bridge called the Spanish Bridge, where there's beautiful fresh water flowing beneath it. You can swim, you can river tube, you can splash. Or not too much further down the road from it, a location called Blue Hole, where you can be diving off of cliffs. You can be paddling in very shallow pools, depending on what your adventure level is. There is something out there for almost everybody.
Exactly, there certainly is. And we look forward to what it is you're going to be unveiling to us. I just want to confess though, guys, that before we come live, what we always do is we log on early just to make sure, test that the connections are working and the microphone is working and the cameras are working. It's technology, so stuff happens, right? And everybody's typically doing these lives from home. And of course, Tika is an entrepreneur. This is your company, right, Tika? So I know we had discussed, the impact that COVID-19 would have probably had on your business, because as I was sharing with Tika in the backstage discussion, guys, is that when we're talking, we always talk about the financial and economic impact that COVID-19 would have had on businesses, many different types of businesses in Jamaica, but perhaps the most impacted industries would have been tourism, entertainment, and transportation, which kind of like almost checks every box of what your business provides, Tika. So could you kind of share with us how you have dealt with the entire COVID-19 pandemic and where you are now with your particular business? Because I think there are lots of entrepreneurs who tend to view our lives, and it's always great to hear the different stories and journeys of the entrepreneurs who
No problem to share. As you alluded to, Being Jamaican was hit pretty hard, as many other small businesses across the island, specifically because of what we offer and because of the industry that we sit in, which is the tourism industry. Definitely, it was not expected. I had first started hearing about COVID around November, December of the prior year. And then January, February, I was like, okay, that is something that's happening in the distance. That's something that's happening in China, spreading across Europe. But we're still okay here in Jamaica. But as we know now, that was not the case. And what happened was that the business came to a screeching halt because what I do or what we do in terms of offering tours really focuses on socializing and persons coming together and people, going out and having a great time and exploring. That was everything that we should not be doing in this specific time. So tours had come to a halt. There were no more experiences. There were no more no more excursions. But whilst it was a downtime for the action part of the job, it was really an opportunity for me to, as I shared, find some time to have some self-reflection, have some time to strategize for the business and think about where I wanted the business to go, how I wanted it to grow, what were some of the things that I could put in place to take those steps to take the business to another level. So on the surface, it was a difficult time. It was a scary time, but it was also a huge opportunity to be able to visualize what the business could be and then start actively putting things in place to take it on that journey, to take it there.
All right, great. And by your own admission, now that we are back to work and economy reopening and borders reopening, your bookings are now picking up steadily going into July. Awesome. Happy to hear that. Great. So now, guys, yes, we're going to go in. So, guys, again, let us know, what are your plans for the summer? What are you guys thinking about doing for the summer? Because let's just now go into this discussion. So just to kick us off, Tika, you would have kind of given us an overview of what your company does, Being Jamaican. Could you kind of share with us how and on what basis do you say that vacationing in Jamaica doesn't have to be expensive? Because let's just keep it real. Everything is expensive in Jamaica. I'm kidding. No, but I mean, Jamaica ain't cheap in a lot of ways. And even for us Jamaicans, who not all of us, most of us, not earning the US dollars, let's just keep it real. There will be a lot of questions about, if I can't travel, what are the inexpensive ways for me to staycation and just enjoy my own country? What's your perspective on that based on your experience and what you provide?
And I think, even just to add a little bit more context, because of the unique situation that we're in now with COVID, and how we need to manage where we go and, the kind of crowds that we are in, it really is a time where people can go off the beaten path and have experiences that are small in terms of your budget. So for example, if someone were to have small funds, and that's quite acceptable in this time because quite a few persons were laid off, some persons had reductions in their pay, several different things impacted people's pockets. So the expectation is that there's going to be less money to spend on something like experiences and something like tours. It's perfectly fitting to now go out into nature. And going out into nature doesn't have to be very expensive. The other day, we took a drive up into the hills of St. Andrew. St. Andrew stretches from Crossroads to Rockfort, but it goes all the way up into the Blue Mountains. So if you drive for about 45 minutes, maybe to an hour, you can find yourself at Holywell, which is beautiful in terms of, the trees and the flora, the open air. It's the perfect place not to find any crowds, and the admission fees are relatively small. So that's a great opportunity to come out of the house, to go out, to see beautiful things, to really enjoy nature, and to have minimal spend. And in a similar fashion, many of the attractions, many of the activities per se are still closed. Some are opening up slowly, but some aren't expected to be open until the end of July. But or what we can expect is we can still go to the rivers, we can still go to the beaches, we can still go camping. There are myriads of beautiful waterfalls that few know about, But if more were to know about it, they could enjoy it even more. And I think that's one of the things that's a little bit daunting. Persons know that they exist, but they don't know where to find these rivers. Where do they find these gems? And I think that is one of the things that is really key. Just kind of open up your mind and explore, and the opportunities are there to be taken advantage of.
All right, sounds good. And I know you're going to give us some specifics because we already got the questions coming in. Elite Media Concept says she's coming from Florida. Wow, make sure you do that test. I know there's some new protocols in place, so make sure you read up on that to make sure that everybody comes here knowing what the protocols are. But the question is, what are the opportunities for excursions? Because not everybody necessarily wants to do the beach thing. So I know we're going to get there. Elite, give us a few, because we are going to get there. Hi everybody. Hey Paula, what's happening? Nice to see you on. Don from New York and Gian, what's happening? Welcome guys. And Shahilia, nice to see you guys. Yes guys, drop us a comment and tell us. And Shahilia already recommending Tika's services. Great. You got a fan, Tika. You got a fan in the audience. Great. All right. So Tika, let's get down to business now. So staycationing. What is staycationing? Because let's not assume that everybody knows what a staycation is, right?
Yes. So staycation is where you're having your vacation, but you're not traveling abroad. So you're staying home. And it can take many different formats. You don't necessarily have to stay in your own home, although you can do that. So say, for example, if you're in Kingston, for example, and you want to have a staycation, you could opt to travel up to Holywell. You could stay in a cabin, very affordably priced. And whilst you're cabining up in the hills, you can be building bonfires. You can be sipping some chocolate tea. You can be doing some hiking, because there are many different trails that people can explore. Trails that will take you to waterfalls, trails that will take you to different lookout points so you can see the view of Kingston City below, or you can see the city views of Portland as well. So that's one example of what a staycation could be. Or for example, if you're living in St. Elizabeth, but you've never visited Portland, or maybe you only visited it, as a child, this is a great opportunity for you to book a hotel or book an Airbnb in Portland, travel to Portland and see what life is like there, experience what Portland has to offer. So staycation can take many different forms. You can do it from your home by just doing day trips out. You enjoy a new experience and then you come back home as well. That's also another way of doing a staycation. But essentially what it is enjoying and exploring your own backyard, having a better appreciation of what Jamaica is and what Jamaica has to offer versus traveling abroad.
Great. So now that we've established the lingo of what staycationing is, again, now with not even just so much for cost purposes, but because of COVID-19 and where we see the different hotspots taking place in countries. So for instance, there are some countries that we would typically travel to, and even within countries, because like in the United States, there are different states that are having different experiences as it pertains to the number of cases being diagnosed and number of active cases. But I think the general theme for this summer is that we're encouraging people, I guess, to stay as close to home as possible, with all due respect. I know some airlines may not necessarily feel that way, and the point is, of course, with visitors coming from overseas, we're not turning them away at all. So yes, Elite, you must still come to Jamaica. We're happy to see you, but we just recognize and acknowledge that staycationing is a popular option that a lot of people are going to choose for this summer, not only because some people just feel safer staying closer to home, but also again for financial reasons. So I think we've already established, that what staycationing is, that because we are not going overseas, we don't have the cost of airfare and so on to deal with. Staycationing could be a great option that people can choose to do, to explore this summer. So could you break down for them, and I know this is going to go into Elite's question now, could you break down for us, Tika, what are some of the staycationing options, affordable options that we can explore in Jamaica, either as Jamaicans living here or overseas visitors coming here? Could you share with us what those options are? And at the same time, give us a sense, because there are some options that are good for families with children. Some are good mainly more so for adults, whether you're traveling as friends, as groups, as couples, or hey, even as singles, right? If you could just break down some options that you know to be available for us, if not immediately, but certainly as the summer progresses.
Yeah, man. Actually, I like that mention of the traveler because I'm often a solo traveler. Many excursions I've taken by myself. I've just kind of hopped into my vehicle, and I've not necessarily a care in the world, but I really just focus on maybe an image of a picture or of a place, or of a restaurant that I had seen somewhere on Instagram, and that's often a lot of the inspiration that is behind what you can do for an experience, whilst you're on a staycation. You can do a little bit of research and kind of hinge that against what it is that you are looking for. So are you looking for adventure? Are you looking for romance for the couples out there? Are you looking for relaxation? Do you just want to go off the grid, have some quiet, peaceful, reflective time? And for all of those different categories, as I mentioned, there are many different activities that can be done. One of them that I always like to highlight is a historical / cultural tour that exists way in the hills of Portland, where you have the opportunity to do a little bit of hiking. So you get to climb into the mountains. You'll see many different fruit trees that you may never have seen before. I remember one young lady learning what a nutmeg looked like, what the plant and what the fruit looked like, because she was only familiar with the nutmeg powder that she saw in the supermarket. And then the hike takes you further up into the mountain, and it climaxes with a beautiful waterfall, the Nani waterfall. And it really is an opportunity for you not only to enjoy nature, but also to learn about your culture, to learn about your history, to learn more about Nani as a national hero. Her grave site is also there as well, the bump grave. So it really is a dualship within, even some of the experiences. You go and have adventure because, you're climbing the mountains and you're jumping off waterfalls, but it's also a great opportunity for you to learn something new, and for you to kind of step outside of your comfort zone as well. And for example, if it is that, it's a couple, and they're looking for that kind of experience to bond, something that allows them to spend some quality time together, I would suggest something like going rafting on the Rio Grande, or even going rafting on the Blue Lagoon, where the water is blue and serene, and it's you, your partner, on a 40-foot handmade bamboo raft. You're floating down the river. You're hearing some reggae music just wafting by on the wind. And, it's almost as if you're transported into another world. And you really have that opportunity to kind of disconnect from your reality and just to immerse yourself in your new reality, and enjoy nature and enjoy, the company of your friends. Solo travelers as well, which is me more often than not. I think our situation is really unique because we can fit into any of those scenarios. A solo traveler can enjoy adventure. A solo traveler can enjoy those tours that are focused on culture or history. A solo traveler can do, just a relaxation on the beach. Even bring it in closer to home, or my home, Kingston, that is, for example. Off the beaten path types of excursions don't have to be those that are hard or difficult to get to. Some of those locations are in plain sight, but still hidden. So for example, I know a lot of us live in Kingston and we've never been to the Bob Marley Museum. Even less visited is another museum dedicated to the life of Bob Marley. And to reggae music on a whole. It's called Trenchtown Culture Yard. It's in Trenchtown in downtown Kingston. So very accessible, but we often don't take the time. So it really is just to do a little bit of research, understand the things that pique your interest, and then go and explore.
Wow. Can I just admit, well, I've been to Bob Marley Museum, but I've never been to the Trenchtown Culture Yard at all. That's interesting. I like the mention of things like the Culture Yard because there's that element of the staycationing as well, where there is more of the not cultural, yes, but educational component as well.
Mhm.
What are some of the other options that are available that are there for us to really dig deep and explore and understand about our cultural history?
Another popular one is the National Museum downtown. So I usually recommend that people go to the National Museum because a lot of us live in Kingston. We've gone downtown, we've gone to the waterfront, but we've never gone to the National Museum. And then, lesser known than the National Museum is Liberty Hall. Liberty Hall is another one of my favorites. It's a museum that is dedicated to the life and to the work and to the journey of our very first national hero. And I know that we all know that that is Marcus Garvey. It talks about not only what he did with the UNIA, but it also speaks about him as a whole man. It talks about his family, his upbringing, and some of what we are living and enjoying today. It kind of points out the early works that Marcus Garvey had done to allow us to enjoy the freedoms now. So it really is an opportunity for us to learn, to learn not only about ourselves as Black people, but also to learn about our history, where we are coming from as well. In addition to those that are in Kingston, it's always a good opportunity to drive out to St. Thomas. St. Thomas, most of us would know, is the home of Paul Bogle. There are several forts, there are statues, there are many museums across the island. Another one that people will recall, but when it comes to time to jump in your car and explore, I don't think the recall is as quick, but it is another treasure trove of information and history, and that is Port Royal. Port Royal is maybe about 45 minutes from here. They have two museums on site. They have the Giddy House, where you can go and you can have the experience of, kind of leaning or tilting. And that was created because of, the massive earthquake that we had endured. So, there are so many opportunities for us, not only to go out and have a fun time, but also for us to learn as well. And that's perfect not only for adults, but for children too.
All right, awesome stuff. Awesome, thank you, thank you. It's really always good to learn about all of these interesting spots to visit right here in our very own backyards.
Mhm.
I mean, so Tika, having now covered, yes, what staycationing is and some of the options available, for families and so on. Is there maybe one option that you could share, maybe that's kid friendly, that stands out? Because I know we're going to be going more into other options, perhaps even those that are good for kids. But anything that kind of stands out to that staycationing with kids is something that a lot of us have now to contemplate.
Yeah, I would like to mention two of them in particular. There is, we've kind of spoken about Kingston and Portland a lot, so I'd want to take a little bit of time to maybe talk about St. Elizabeth. St. Elizabeth is on the other side of the island. It's maybe about a 2.5 hour drive to get there. There is the Black River Safari. And what the Black River Safari is, it's a boat tour that takes you along the length of the Black River. And the Black River is the second longest river in the island, and it's the widest river in the island. So because of the width of the river, boats can go along it quite easily. And it really is an opportunity for children not only to have fun, you're on a boat, it's exciting, water is bubbling up around you, but it's also an opportunity for them to see things that they wouldn't normally see. So you're looking at the wildlife, you're looking at the birds, you're looking at the flora, you're looking at the crocodiles. There aren't many places in Jamaica that you can see a crocodile. You probably would have to go to the zoo. But that is readily accessible and very safe, because I can see the mothers saying crocodiles. Very safe for them to enjoy. So that's another great learning opportunity and a fun opportunity for them as well. And for children or families with children, I would suggest something like hiking, going up into the Blue Mountains. Although it is so close, you'd be surprised at the difference in temperature. It's very cold sometimes in the Blue Mountains, so it's almost as if you're transported to a completely different place. So we often suggest, you walk with a light sweater, maybe even walk with, something thicker or heavier. It's great to meander through the forest, learn about the trees, learn about the plants, have the opportunity to do something different. So you build a bonfire with your children. You're building a fire out of brick, out of sticks, not necessarily with gasoline. It was quite tricky when I did it, or my brother did it, but it was quite rewarding, when we eventually did do it. And my niece, who was only 3 years old, completely enjoyed it. She was thrilled. She said it was the best vacation ever. So it really is, showing them something other than the norm. When we're here, we're at our homes, our routine is usually very mundane. It's work and school and church and, maybe one or two activities. But when you go outside of that realm, it's almost as if you open up a whole new world for children to really to see and to explore. And it really isn't just for children, it's for adults as well. Because many of us who live in Kingston or who live in the other parishes have never really gone up into the Blue Mountains because we're really sticking to our routine. We're sticking to our mundane routine or realities, that is. So
Right.
sometimes it's good to, get out and try something new and different.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some great ideas there for the kids. So, Tika, then before we wrap up this segment, and then we're going to be transitioning now, talking about some of the options for 1 day trips, which I know some of the things would have already gone there, would have touched on, but we're going to be transitioning next into discussing for those of us who just want to kind of just in and out, go out in the morning, come back in the afternoon. But before we wrap up this segment, we're largely looking at staycationing options, just high level. What are the general tips that you would leave us with for those of us planning to staycation this year? What are your top tips there to leave us with and to close out this segment of this?
I think now is the time for staycations, to be honest, because just looking at social media now, I'm seeing quite a few hotels having deals. Quite a few of them are advertising that they're reopening, and they're also advertising that they're having promotional deals, discounted prices, breakfast thrown in where it otherwise wouldn't have been. So now is a really good time to see what is out there and have a staycation here in Jamaica. So take advantage of the opportunities that exist would be my first tip. And the second tip would be, whilst you're staying at these hotels, and more often than not, a lot of them are all inclusive, my recommendation would be to balance the experience. So it's great, to go into the hotel, to splash in their pool, to go to their bar and their restaurant, but also use the opportunity to go outside of the hotel and go into the communities, meet the people that live in the communities, have conversations with them, support small businesses, go and find a little mom and pop shop, ask the locals what's the best restaurant to eat at, have an understanding of, not just top line or surface level, what the community or what the parish has to offer, but, really go in and see, what truly is there. Really immerse yourself in the full experience. So that would be another tip as well, really go into the community. And what it is too is not only an opportunity for you to learn and to step outside of your box, but it's also an opportunity where you are impacting the community in a positive way. You're helping those small businesses as well. So that's another good thing to do. So those would be my tips. Take advantage of the opportunities that exist, especially now with the deals that are there with the hotels. But once you go into the hotels, don't limit your experience. Stay and enjoy all of what an all-inclusive has to offer, but also take the opportunity to go out into the communities, see what everyday life is like, see what the different nuances in culture is like, what are the stories that people tell there, have that enriched experience.
That's a great nugget. And, supporting the small businesses in the communities, I think it's an awesome way to end that point because, again, we've all been impacted in some way, shape, or form by this pandemic, some unfortunately more than others. And as the economy reopens, and here is an opportunity for us to staycation in our own country, here is again the chance to go out there and support these businesses, a lot of whom probably would have been completely closed over the past few months because of the lack of visitors and tourists coming to visit. Here we have the opportunity to sponsor them and purchase their goods, their services, and help in the rebuilding of the economy and our communities. So I think that's a great way to wrap that section. And again, we continue to welcome everybody who's joining us. Natasha, hey, Laptop Night, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Quick question, Tika. Elite is asking, do they have internet access in the Blue Mountains?
Yes, and there's also hot water in the Blue Mountains. I always get that question because it's so cold. There's definitely hot water, so you can take your bath, so you don't have to restrain yourself. And then for sure, there's Wi-Fi, so you can work from the Blue Mountains.
Absolutely. Good to hear that. So, I mean, internet access is as important as hot water. Let's just put it that way. Trudy, hey Trudy, thanks for joining. Question from Trudy. Can you say, Tika, so far? Well, I guess her question is about plans for the South Coast. And on the North Coast, there's some things that have reopened, some have not. Some are like, I know I was in Ojarias on the weekend, and I know Mystic Mountain, I think their plans for late July reopening. But do you know, can you kind of get a sense, North Coast and South Coast, what the timelines are for reopening?
On the North Coast, so we know for a fact that the beaches and the rivers are open, at least most of them. Not all of the beaches have been opened, but the majority of beaches have been opened, and the rivers are open as well. So if you are in the North Coast, if you're in the St. Anne, St. Mary region, you have the opportunity to go to White River. You can do some river tubing. You can do some river rafting. You can head up to the Blue Hole. You can do some swimming, some diving, some splashing if you're averse to diving. And the beaches in St. Anne, a lot of them are open as well. The Cove is another beautiful property. It's a little bit hidden, but if you're in the Drax Hall area, you're pretty close to it. That's the North Coast. On the South Coast, quite a few of them are still closed. So Wyeth Falls is still closed. The Joyce Pence Appleton Estate is still closed. But Pelican Bar is open. Quite a few of the rivers there are open as well. Bluefields Beach, a beautiful beach, is open too. So it just takes a little bit of research, but you'll be able to find hidden gems no matter which parish you are that you can enjoy.
Great. Thank you so much. And yes, D from YouTube. D, of course, highlighting wanting some more solo trip places to stay. So stay tuned, D, because I know we've covered a few options already, right, Tika? What we're gonna be doing some more later on. So stay tuned. Hey, Patricia, thanks for joining. Patricia highlighting that she did the Blue Mountain trek a few years ago, but she didn't have hot water or Wi-Fi. I don't know.
Sorry.
Elite says that their wife won't go with them if they don't have internet and thing. But it is what it is, because sometimes we're not traveling for ourselves, we're traveling with our spouses as well. So it's all good, guys. Different strokes for different folks. Okay, great, Tika. So now let's look at one-day trips, right? So whether you're traveling solo, whether you're traveling with family, with or without the kids, or with friends, what are the options, that are available for the one-day type of trips? And are there any changes that we should look out for as we're planning to visit those various attractions now in the reopening, Tika?
Okay, no problem. So one-day trips, aka road trips. So now is the time you get in your car, you get in your van, and you head out. So there are quite a few. Most of the experiences, as I mentioned before, you can experience them in one day. You don't necessarily have to overnight. So you can drive out to the Blue Lagoon. I remember I really wanted to make note of that one because the Monkey Island is there pretty close to the Blue Lagoon. It's about it's not 20 minutes. It's about 5 to 10 minute boat ride out. you really have the opportunity to have a little island off the shore of Jamaica, kind of to yourself, because to be honest, not a lot of people are out now. And that's one of the pluses that has kind of come out of COVID, and it's also a plus for what off the beaten path is. You don't necessarily see a lot of crowds, so you could essentially have a little island all to yourself. So it's a great opportunity for you to pack an igloo. You have a couple of beers, a couple of water. You bring some snacks with you, you bring some music with you, and that could be you for the day on an island by yourself, splashing, swimming, you and your friends. Another great one would be Pelican Bar, which is off the coast of Jamaica again. That one is a boat ride. And usually that is a more rustic experience. So what they do is the fishermen in the community, this is a means for them to earn some money. So they will take you from the mainland to Pelican Bar. Quick boat ride back and front. Once you get to Pelican Bar, you tell them what time you want them to pick you back up to take you over, and they'll for sure come back. They'll oftentimes even leave their phone numbers with you, so you can call them and they can come back and pick you up. Pelican Bar, for those who don't know, is a bar that is situated on a reef in the middle of the sea. So you can come out of the bar and you can stand in the water. Usually the water is about waist high. So persons will be out having a drink, talking outside of the bar in the water because it's a reef. But between you and the land is deep sea. So it really is a unique experience. And the bar itself is made from driftwood. And usually persons who go there leave a little bit of a memorabilia, whether it be a flag from their country or a license plate. I've seen their caps. And what they also do is they can inscribe your name or your initials in the floorboards of Pelican Bar itself. So it really is an opportunity to have a unique experience. So road trips can take you all across the island to all of the different 14 parishes. So I just gave you an example for St. Elizabeth, and we spoke about an example in Portland. We have examples for all of the different parishes. I'm not hearing you, Carrie. You're on mute.
I always do that, right? I keep chatting and forgetting I'm on mute. But question now, going back to any changes that we can expect now, with the reopening.
Yes. So lots of different changes. And the changes are really there for our safety. And I think that is the mindset that we should take going in. These things are different, but they are there to protect us and to help us. So more often than not, what you will find is once you arrive at the location, they may want to take your temperature with the temperature gun. So they may hold this a few inches from your forehead or from your neck to make sure that you're not running a fever, because that is indicative of the coronavirus. They will also sanitize you. So they will spritz some sanitizer or alcohol into your hands. You'll be asked to, rub your hands to make sure that they're nice and clean. Usually, the recommendation too is that you wear your mask. Once you're in your location and you found your spot on the river or on the beach, I've seen where it's okay to take your masks off, but sometimes the rule vary for the different locations. So it's always key to note, once you're entering, what are the regulations for that particular spot. But more often than not, what is always consistent is the sanitizing and the social distancing. So groups are allowed. So small groups of 10 is the last number that I heard being communicated, are perfectly fine. Larger groups than that, not allowed. So when you're planning your road trips, try to keep the number 10 and below in terms of group size. And then once you've arrived on your location, it is maintaining a distance from other groups. And that's where the social distancing comes in. And it really is just kind of being very intentional and very cognizant of what's happening. Don't touch all of the surfaces. Understand that some of the nuances are there to protect you. I have been to certain locations where they don't leave beach chairs out for you anymore. So the expectation is that you're gonna just lay out your mat or you lay out your towel and then somebody will come to you to take your order versus you going to the bar or you going to the restaurant to place an order. It's unique for all of them, but there are some standard things there. So the standards are the mask, the standard is the social distancing, and the standard is the sanitation. So those are some of the things that we can expect.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And I mean, just again to share with our viewers is that I actually, even the hotel properties, of course, themselves have been putting in their own changes. You know, we were at an all-inclusive just this past weekend, and they also had their unique changes as well, apart from, of course, all employees wearing masks, and they put up these acrylic screens at the check-in counter. So normally when you check in, it's a nice over-the-counter experience. Now they got screens with the little windows to pass the documents through. But you would have seen things like closing the swim-up bar, which was high contact, high engagement areas. The dining rooms have less tables and chairs, so they're able to space them out a little bit more. The hotel I was at, where they give you the opportunity to scan the QR code when you enter to get the menu on your phone, so that you're looking at the menu on your phone. There's no more buffet. You're ordering your food a la carte, and the menu is on your phone, because, of course, buffets, obviously, they don't want that. And even when you're ordering a la carte, they don't want the menu of touching hand. Everybody has to same menu, so they put it on your foot. They give you an opportunity to have it on your own phone. This is after they give you the opportunity to not only sanitize your hands, but also to give you wipes to wipe down your cell phone. So it's really it's new times. What can I tell you? But I really should commend all of our tourism operations, hotels, places where people visit, about the vigilance and the way in which they've sought to incorporate these very necessary changes to keep everybody safe, while at the same time not necessarily impacting the overall experience. I mean, it is what it is. You got to look at these employees with masks on, but the masks match the uniforms most times. But at the end of the day, we know why it is, and it's still service with a smile. I think it's everybody's happy to be back out to work, and yes, and property is happy to welcome visitors back. So it is what it is. But I must commend everybody for the steps that they've taken to ensure that the overall experience still contains the kind of a welcoming warmth that we're used to on our beautiful island, as we seek to enjoy not only foreigners but locals as well. Great. Thank you so much for those tips, Tika. So let's move on now. So we spoke a little bit about some one-day trip options. Now, for off the beaten path. Now, if I know you are obviously on Instagram. That's one of the places we can find you. But me being on Instagram, I'm seeing all these beautiful pictures of places. I'm like, that is Jamaica. It's like, sometimes you're like, you had no idea that these gorgeous places exist. And so in this next segment, we want to go into talking about off the beaten path. And I know you know a lot of them, Tika. Would you share with us, what are the attractions in your experience that are the least visited, and certainly the gems, if you could just kind of break them down and tell us where we can access them. And of course, indicate which ones are more family friendly than others, because I'm sure that's a consideration as well.
Okay. All right. So the majority of what I would have shared are off the beaten path, because that's the nature of being Jamaican. But there are two particular ones I want to share again. This one is a new one. I hadn't shared it before. There is a waterfall right on the border of St. Andrew and St. Thomas. So it's not very far from where we are here in Kingston. It's the Bob Marley. It's a waterfall that Bob Marley sang about in one of his songs called Trenchtown Rock. It's a beautiful falls called Cane River Falls. And there is actual photographic evidence of Bob Marley washing his locks and bathing and washing his hair underneath the falls. So not a lot of people know about it. But not just because of the significance of Bob Marley, because it truly is a beautiful falls, but then, having the Bob Marley element adds to the mystique and to the energy, that the falls has. And not very far from Cane River Falls is also Bob Marley Beach. And it is said that Bob Marley used to train on that beach. He used to run up and down on the beach, to get his exercise on. So those are two attractions that are very close to each other, very close to the border of St. Andrew and St. Thomas. Beautiful that people can enjoy. So separate and apart from that one, another one I want to mention is, I touched on it before, but because of its uniqueness, I really wanted to just say a little bit more. It's Nanny Falls in Portland. And it is unique because the guide who works there is a Maroon. And he takes you on a journey, not only sharing about, the falls and about nature and the different plants that you see along the way, but you're hearing about, Maroon heritage, you're hearing about our African ancestors, because the Maroons are a subgroup within the Jamaican context that has a very strong connection with Africa. And a lot of the things that our ancestors used to do, the Maroons still practice it. So some of the languages that were spoken then, the Maroons still speak it now. So it's an opportunity, to learn a few token African words here and there. It's an opportunity to enjoy nature. The area actually has a UNESCO World Site Award. I hope I got it right. And it is unique because it was awarded because of the culture, all of the history with Nanny and with the Maroons and the fight that they had against the British, and our ability for us as Jamaicans to get our independence because of some of the work that they did, but then also because of the natural element, because, there are endemic plants, species that are there that don't exist anywhere else. So because of those two things, it has a very unique UNESCO award. So those, I think, are some very beautiful off the beaten path types of adventures or experiences that people can check off or write down on their bucket list. And another one, not just for culture or for history, but really for relaxation, is rafting. Rafting on the Rio Grande is something that I think people can get immense joy from. There is a tour that starts all the way up in a small community called Berrydale, and you raft all the way down the Rio Grande. And at the halfway mark, there is a lady who cooks the most amazing food you will ever eat. And I am not joking. If anybody has had Miss Belinda's cooking, they know what I'm talking about. She does, I don't eat it anymore, but she does an amazing pork, an amazing curry goat. And all you need to do is kind of call ahead, place your order. She'll pre-prepare it. So by the time your raft is coming down and you pull off on the side and you hop off of the raft, the food is there for you to eat. And she prepares it outdoor, very traditional cooking methods. So you'll find coal stove, you'll find her grating her coconut. And the food is just really not only filled with, flavor, but also really filled with love. Nobody can tell me otherwise. And then once you've had your fill, you hop back on your raft and you continue to float, down the river. At different points, you can come off the raft, you can swim, you can splash. The raft captains are oftentimes singing, they're telling stories. Sometimes, you can carry your glue on your raft with you, and, you really make it a full experience. So that too is another one of the activities I really would want people to, add to their little bucket list.
All right, awesome. Yes, as Shahilia says, Miss Belinda, I'm on my way. And thanks guys for all the little nuggets you're dropping in. I mean, up a little further, Trudy May reminding us, that when we go to these places, to remember to take our trash with us. Absolutely. Question about Monkey Island, Tika. Is there a beach on there?
Yes, there is. So the island is in the middle of the sea. So you have beach all around it. But to be honest, the beach that we can use is on the side facing Jamaica. So there is quite a bit of sandy area and then shallow water. And oftentimes it's so shallow that you can walk pretty far out and it probably just reach your knees.
Wow, wow. How does one get out there? Just a curiosity for me. I mean, and
There are two ways. You can either get a boat captain to take you out, or you can get a raft captain to take you out.
Okay, wow. Did not know that.
So you head down to Blue Lagoon, and then once you get to Blue Lagoon, you seek the services of either a boat captain or a raft captain, and then they can take you there.
All right, awesome, awesome. Thank you. And Natasha, of course, reminding us as we talked about changes that we're seeing during, these new protocols are for everyone's safety, so we really need to be patient and understanding. And we absolutely agree with that, Natasha, because it's really about staying safe at the end of the day. Yes, summer is not canceled. It's just a new kind of summer. Here's some other things. Samoya dropping some options here too. Hi, Samoya. Thanks again for joining as usual. Reggae Falls, Longboarder Bar and Grill.
St. Thomas. Both of them are in St. Thomas.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then she went further on to talk about Falling Edge Waterfalls
that's on Stony Hill side. So when you're heading up to Stony Hill, pretty close to Boone Hall Oasis, you can find that hidden waterfall.
Awesome. Okay, great. Yes, guys. And if you have options that are great hidden gems, but Tika, having heard about these hidden gems, where can I find them? I mean, is there a place I can, how do I, about Nanny Falls or something like that? I mean, how do I even set that up, apart from, in addition, of course, to calling being Jamaican, but,
I think persons can find them the way I originally found them, to be honest, because prior to being Jamaican, I was an explorer. I would go to my 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, that was when I would explore. So what I used to do was I would be inspired by the images that I saw. And once I saw an image, I did a little bit of research. I found a name. And then once I found a name, I would do a Google search, and after you do a Google search, maybe you reach out to some friends. Do you know anybody in the area? Or you go to the area yourself. Jamaicans on a whole are very friendly people. So a stranger in the area isn't necessarily something that persons should feel uneasy about. I used to just go up to a shop or a bar and ask people, where is this, or do you know where that is? And even if I don't find the exact spot that I'm looking for, I usually still find something equally as beautiful. So it's all about having that adventurous spirit. If you want to go and try and find it on your own, if you essentially don't want to go and find it on your own, which is a lot of people's concerns, is then you can just come to being Jamaican. I think one of the things that being Jamaican has a disadvantage is connections within the communities. So it benefits from all of the different relationships that I would have built in the past from my solo travels. So within each community, there is a local guide and a contact. And what that contact does is he or she will ensure our safety. He or she is alerted when we're coming. He or she makes sure that, that place is clean, trash is picked up, that everything is ready, they can accommodate us. They allow other persons in the community to know that we're there. And it really gives the opportunity for you to connect with people and to meet with people because they know who you are now. You're not just somebody who just stumbled in. So you can have the connections and you can have that enhanced experience. So sure, you can go out on your own and adventure and find it and discover on your own. That's something that I've practiced before and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But then there are entities out there that would have done, that research and that work for you. And it can be a very enjoyable and hassle-free experience when you find a reputable company to go with too.
Right. And that's definitely a valid option because there is going it on your own and just exploring, because there's certainly a lot of people who find pleasure in doing that. And then, as you rightly said, there's the option of choosing a company who would be able to do all of that legwork for you, because they have the relationships, they have the experience, and they can definitely navigate that for you. Thank you so much. All right, so we're moving into the home stretch now. With just some general questions that we thought our viewers would have. And guys, if you have any questions for Tika, feel free to drop them right there in the comments. And of course, if we have time, we'd be happy to get through them.
Yeah.
But one particular question here, Tika, because I know I'm a mom as well, and just wanting to plan a memorable trip, whether it be a day trip or an overnight or two trip for the kids, is something that's a big priority. What's your particular recommendation? If you could perhaps give us some kind of an example of a kind of trip you recommend that families could plan for those with children, in terms of any particular parish that you would choose over the other, or could propose, and attractions that we could do either one day or overnight?
So even before I get into a particular attraction, what I'd like to do, or what I suggest people do, is they consider the kind of experience that they're looking for. So they and their children may just be looking for relaxation and quiet time. And if it's relaxation and quiet time, I would suggest an Airbnb in Treasure Beach, for example. Treasure Beach is in St. Elizabeth. It's a very small fishing village, but community tourism is very big there. So you have, for example, Jake's Restaurant, which is right on the water. They serve the most amazing jerk fish and shrimp pizza. The kids will always love the pizza. So that's a spot where people can go and relax. The beach is right there. You can splash, you can swim. Once you're finished, you can come into the restaurant. You can get some food to eat, some fish, some fish tea. You can relax there. And then within Treasure Beach itself, there are quite a few other activities that you can enjoy. The Pelican Bar isn't far from there, so you could take a boat ride out to Pelican Bar from Treasure Beach. On a Thursday nights, they usually do a movie night on the lawns of one of the restaurants there. So, you can get your meal and you can pull up your blanket, you can bring your cushions on the lawn, and, you can watch the big screen. It's usually very old movies, nothing current, nothing like what's in Carib, but just the experience of watching a movie outdoors under the stars. I'm sure children would love that, bundled up in their blankets. They probably will fall asleep before the movie is over, but they will have memories that will last them a lifetime. And the family as a whole, the parents will have a good time too. As I said, it's a small fishing village. So it's a very quiet spot. Usually everybody knows everybody. And if you don't know everybody, it's the kind of community where you walk by, and once you're passing somebody, you tell them good morning, or you tell them good evening, or you tell them good afternoon. They also have bicycle tours, so you can go through the community. You can learn about the community. That is something that I think children would also really enjoy. So Treasure Beach, Jake's Restaurant, movie night under the stars, bicycle tours, and beach.
Awesome. Great option there. Thanks for sharing that. Now, there's some of us, and I know a lot of our millennial crowd and Gen Z crowd love friendship, friend-based group types of experiences when they're staycationing. Any top example or option that you would propose for them?
Yes. For friends. Friends is usually where we can up the ante a little bit with adventure. So I would suggest Reach Falls. Did somebody say Reach Falls? I think somebody in the comments mentioned Reach Falls. Reach Falls is a beautiful falls in a community in Portland called Manchonil. It's a gigantic falls. I've seen people jump from the top into the very deep waters below, so it's very safe. But then on the adventure element as well, further upstream, because you have the opportunity not just to enjoy the falls itself, but you can follow the stream or the river that feeds the falls. So if you walk upstream, there is what they call the rabbit hole. And the rabbit hole is a spiral of water that goes down into a sinkhole. So more often than not, people stand right on the lip or right on the edge of the rabbit hole, and then they jump in. And it's underwater caves, so you can swim out and then you can resurface at the end. So that is something that I would suggest if it is a group of friends who are looking for adventure, if they're looking for that kind of adrenaline. But even if it's a mixed group, some persons may want to jump into the rabbit hole. Some persons may want to dive off of the waterfall. But if there are persons who are more reserved in the group, what they can more than likely do is they can just relax in the waterfall. There are several shallow pool areas where you can just sit. You can laugh, you can tell stories, you can chill. And the hike between the fall and the rabbit hole is also another opportunity for like a mini adventure, because you can either do that hike by walking in the river itself all the way up, because it's pretty shallow, so you can maneuver the rocks and go, or you can take it on the side of the land. So, you can be walking up and down, or even if the group is split, so you have some people in the water, they're swimming along, and some people are on the land. So it really is, if the group is mixed and some are adventurous, some aren't, nobody will feel left out. There's still something that everybody can do. And the facilities itself are really beautiful. I believe it is one of the TPDCO sites. So everything is very pristine, very clean, bathrooms, changing rooms, all of those conveniences are there for persons to utilize, less rustic and more convenient and comfortable. So that is something that I'd recommend for a group of friends who are adventuring.
Great. Awesome. And thanks, guys, for all of the recommendations coming in the comments. Trudy saying for her Treasure Beach experience, she's recommending a day boat excursion with Dennis Abrahams. Trudy,
Dennis.
Tika knows him, right? They sound like they're besties. So maybe Trudy, tell us how to find Dennis. And Trudy wants to know, Tika, if you jumped in the rabbit hole. If you've ever...
I did it.
Okay, great. And hi, Marlon from Facebook. Marlon bringing back to the table a couple of the options we have spoken about earlier. We spoke about the Rum Tour, which I think is still closed at the moment. Black River Safari, do you know if it has reopened yet?
I don't think so.
Okay, probably not either. And Lover's Leap is also something that Marlon would have. I don't know if they're reopened as yet. I know there are a couple of places still closed, guys. So I would say, definitely if you can reach out and call to ensure that they've reopened, that would be a good thing to do before you hit the road. All right. So I know that we've been talking a lot or giving a lot of options that even singles can take advantage of. And, the reality is, Tika, is that sometimes, we don't necessarily have a significant other, we don't have children, and we may not even want to go with friends. We just want to explore on our own. There's a colleague that I know, she loves to just drive around and find hidden gems like waterfalls to explore on her own. I guess maybe if I was to go solo, what would you say is perhaps one among your top recommendations, or give us a top recommendation for something or somewhere where a solo traveler can go and feel totally comfortable and get a great experience at the same time?
The one I'm going to suggest is one that was recently done by a group of, myself and one other person. And I think a solo traveler would enjoy it because it has quite a few levels. It's something that will keep them interested along the way. So it really is a suggestion of stops. So if, for example, the person is in Kingston, I would suggest heading up into the hills. First stop at Cafe Blue, so you can have some breakfast. Miss Winsome does a really amazing ackee and saltfish and fried dumpling up at Crystal Edge. Once you've had your fill and you've had your great Jamaican coffee, Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee is ranked as not number one, but one of the best coffees in the entire world. Once you've had your fill of breakfast and you've had your coffee, you continue further up. I often like to suggest that people stop at Newcastle So Newcastle is currently the JDF training site, but formerly it was a military base that the British used, back in the day when we were defending our shores against the Spaniards, colonial times. But some of the relics still remain. So you can see a cannon there. You can see the amazing views that the British would have more than likely used to see if there were any ships coming ashore so that they could, get their armies ready and get ready to go into battle. And there are quite often soldiers there. The last time I went, or soldiers in training, because it is a training ground, you see the soldiers doing their drills. You see them, working out, doing their stretches on the pavilion. And that is a scene in itself. It's not something that you often get to see. So that would be a great little stop as well. And then you can continue even further going up into Holywell. Holywell is the national park. You can do a little bit of hiking. There are 4 different trails there. You can have a guided tour. So a ranger can take you on that tour if you want, or you are free to meander as you choose on your own. There are cabins that are there. If you want to overnight, you can overnight. If you don't want to overnight in a traditional cabin, you can bring your tent. You can put up your tent. You can build your fire. And not very far from Holywell, maybe another 20-minute drive, you can find a beautiful waterfall. It falls over 100 feet. So all the way up, come crashing all the way down. And what I tend to do once I go to that waterfall is go right up underneath the waterfall, and then you just have the water just beating down on your back. Beautiful massage. That's something I'm sure a solo traveler would truly enjoy.
Sounds cold.
It would be a little bit cold because river water tend to be cold.
And river water in the Blue Mountains.
Exactly, double cold.
Wow. I'm seeing a question here from Elite, and I don't know if this is what they're referring to. I want to tour Flankers.
Montego Bay.
Yeah. So it's a legit question because, I've heard of people talk about visitors to Jamaica, because I believe Elite is based overseas. I understand that there are visitors to Jamaica who would have heard stories, I guess, about some of our garrison communities and so on, or ghetto communities, and would want to there's a curiosity to want to go in and see what's happening.
To be honest, it's not unpopular. I've had, and I've done in the past, a similar type of tour. So I had a group of persons who were here from the US, and we were able to organize a dance hall tour for them. So they had the opportunity to learn dance moves or dance styles from some locals. And then after they had the moves down pat, we then went to a street party. So you go to an actual dance, really authentic speaker boxes, and you get an opportunity to practice the dance moves that you just learned. So it's not unpopular. To be honest, quite a few foreigners, if you ask them what they know about Jamaica, they are going to tell you reggae music. And they'll tell you Bob Marley and Usain Bolt and some other things. But definitely our music and our culture or party scene, that is a big part of what a lot of people want to explore when they come here. So it is something that we do. I'm sorry though, not Flankers. I'm sorry, Elite, but it's something that we can organize. Another one, I'm trying to remember we had done another similar tour, but it's essentially the same thing, where persons really want to have a true appreciation of what our culture is. So nature is one, but then our music is really another. And the way how we are so creative in the dance forms that we do. So another one I wanted to mention was at Skyline Levels. Every Sunday, they haven't opened back yet though, but every Sunday evening into Sunday night, they have music playing. So the scene is usually huge speaker boxes and vinyl music playing. So those old time records, rockers, reggae type music, some Dennis Brown in the air, some Chronics in the air, and you're overlooking the Kingston city lights. The views are amazing. The energy is completely different. It's more rootsy. It's more organic.
The aroma. I'm kidding.
No, you're right.
It is what it is.
But yeah, there are so many different facets of Jamaica. The culture is one, and our history, our music is another, and the nature is something else as well. So, there are so many different things that you can enjoy about this beautiful island that we call home.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I guess for those people who want to get into like the flankers, I mean, Natasha, who I believe is from down St. James side, Natasha is recommending doing community service type projects is a great way to visit underserved communities.
That's a good idea.
If you're able to get into something like that, that's probably a more structured and a bit safer way to do that. But we don't recommend, our visitors kind of just wandering into these communities to sniff around. Particularly because we got a lot of ZOSOs and states of emergencies and all these things going on right now. We just encourage people to be wise as they explore our beautiful island. Dub Club, give it to us. What is Dub Club?
That's what we just spoke about at Skyline.
Okay, yeah, I follow them on Instagram. I just didn't pick out Dub Club, but I've heard good things though.
Yes, ma'am.
I've heard good things, but they haven't reopened again yet. Hi, Dennis Abrahams. Welcome. Yes, your name calls, so you answer. Trudy's asking a question of you here, Tika. Trudy May is saying she was up in the St. Andrew Hills in January, and she said she could hear some drumming and chanting in the mornings. Would you happen to know, Tika?
I know what that is.
What's that?
There is a community. Let's see. I don't remember the name of the community, but it's pretty close to where Eats Cafe is. I know quite a few persons may know Eats Cafe, but it is called Bobo Hill. And Bobo Hill is where a group of Rastas live. So they have their own community. They have their temple, they have their schools, they have their homes where they live, they have their farms that they work. And oftentimes, as a form of celebration and even as a form of entertainment, they have something that's called a Naya Bingi. And a Naya Bingi is where there's lots of drumming happening, lots of chanting and singing happening. And that is more than likely what she would have heard.
Nice.
Over here, up in St. Andrew.
Yes, in the hills. There's a beautiful part of the island. I love going up there. And Cafe Eats, a nice little spot. Okay, great. Well, Tika, this has been awesome stuff. And we love the engagement from our viewers, of course, dropping their nuggets and their recommendations as well. We really appreciate your expertise. And before we go into our final wrap up and our final nugget, we just want to do a quick we like to wrap up with a quick housekeeping matter. So, of course, again, we want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. It's always a pleasure, the JMMB family, bringing you the information that you need to navigate through this very unusual time and a new kind of normal that we're all living in, brought about by the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. But it's always our pleasure. These discussions always help us, and we hope they help you, and we're so grateful for the opportunity to bring them to you every single week. Of course, we are going back to our normal schedule now. So as I mentioned at the top of the discussion, last week was an unusual week where we did a Tuesday-Thursday combination because we were covering discussions around the goal of home acquisition, which was, as you recall, a very extensive topic. If you haven't seen any of those recordings, please feel free to go over to our YouTube channel, JMMB Group Jamaica, or it's on our Instagram and Facebook as well as Twitter page, where you can look at those recordings and get some great nuggets. And tonight we were here discussing how to enjoy summer on a budget. And I'm going to go back to ask Tika one final question, because I saw another question coming up in the discussion panel, but it's really been an awesome discussion here tonight. Next week is going to be another interesting week, and we're still in the summertime discussion because we're just kind of breaking the kind of a serious money vibe just for a bit. We recognize it is summer. Summer isn't canceled. We're still doing summer. We're doing it safely as well as keeping it fun and keeping it affordable. So next week, we're going to have another interesting session. You are going to want to see this. This is probably going to be a very, very unique session. I'm not going to give away the goods, but it's going to involve a little eating and a little drinking display, but we're going to save all the nice details for you. So keep posted. Follow JMMB on our Instagram page. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel as well where you can catch the recordings of all these discussions. We're going to be back here next week, Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Same JMMB group platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, where we're going to be continuing this discussion next week, where we're going to be talking about something else to do about how to enjoy summer. So you're going to want to catch that next week. Stay tuned to our social media pages to learn how you can jump in on that conversation. Again, tonight's discussion is live as usual, but we are recording it as always, and we're going to be uploading it to our channels, our platforms on social media as well. So if you never got a chance to catch the whole conversation, catch the replay. If there's someone else who you believe would have done well with this kind of information, please share the link with them so that they can catch it as well. And of course, keep the connection going, keep in touch. So let's go back to Tika. Tika, I know that in our discussion, of course, given the theme and the topic that we've been discussing, virtually everything here we've been discussing are affordable options, right? I mean, generally, are there any tips that you have that can help us to really keep staycationing affordable in Jamaica?
I think essentially what it requires is an open mind. And being willing to step out of the box. Maybe give up a few of your usual conveniences, and having that air or that energy that you're going to explore and that you're going to discover. Once you have that mindset, you're good to go. The world is there, or Jamaica is there to take full advantage of. Just driving from your home to another community and coming up on a river or coming up on somebody and asking them a few questions about what exists near here can lead to you discovering something beautiful, something that you never imagined. And the fact is, Jamaica has so many different hidden gems. I don't know where they all are. I keep discovering new ones every day. And I don't spend more than just the gas in my car or maybe the meal that I would have eaten that day. I think we just need to have that open mind about what experiences can be and what they look like, and not be limited to a box. It can be as expensive as you want it to be, but it can also be very affordable.
Thank you. I really believe that is a great nugget to share, is that basically everything we would have been discussing is affordable. And what's most interesting is that a lot of them wouldn't necessarily have been your traditional, with due respect, all-inclusive. I love me a good all-inclusive, just all-inclusive. But if you are trying to stay on a budget, then it requires you to think a little bit differently, think outside of the box sometimes, and step out of your comfort zone. So as you say, maybe hiking in Holywell or staying in the hills in a nice tent or cabin would be great for the kids. It may not, as you say, have all your conveniences, but it certainly is a very affordable and fun and interesting and educational even alternative for you and for your family. So I would say,
I love a good all-inclusive too, Carrie, and I really do. But what I usually recommend is a balance. So stay in the all-inclusive. Enjoy everything that the all-inclusive has to offer. But step out of the all-inclusive and go into the communities and see what else is there. Make sure that when you're leaving Jamaica or when you're going back home, you would have had a full experience and that you would have seen all of what the area has to offer. I truly believe that if you only remain in an all-inclusive, you are limiting what your experience can be. You know, it's good to just kind of step out and to see what else is there, and you'd be surprised with, you know, what you learn and how much you enjoy it.
Absolutely. And in this time of COVID, I believe we may have touched on an aspect of this a little earlier in the discussion. Is there anything that you recommend that we personally should be doing differently to stay safe and continue to protect ourselves and our families as we staycation?
So now is the time given all of the protocols that exist, now is the time for off the beaten path. Now is the time, because all of the traditional activities are still closed. Now is the time to go into the mountains. You and fresh air, you know, you and all of the trees and the flowers. Now is the time to enjoy less people, you know, because there are no crowds out in nature. So it is a unique time, but it's actually really an opportunity for us to step into nature and to really enjoy it.
Awesome. Absolutely. I totally take that point. All righty. Great. So, Tika,
Yes.
now we're going into what we like to call our final nugget. So, having discussed all of these great pointers, great places to staycation in Jamaica, whether you're a family going with friends, singles, couples, what have you, and all of the things we need to consider as we continue to live with COVID in this new normal. We're going to go to bed tonight and we're going to think on these great tips, probably watch this discussion again tomorrow, share it with family and friends. What is your final nugget? What do you believe is the biggest takeaway or recommendation you would want everyone to bear in mind as they wake up tomorrow morning and get to plan their own staycation, apart from calling being Jamaican?
Definitely call being Jamaican. But what I'd love people to do is to be open. I think we are very much used to vacationing in a particular way, and trends are changing and times are changing, and what is blossoming is, you know, experiencing authentic, experiencing real. So be open to that. And what you can do is, you know, on your scrolls in social media, when you're looking through Instagram or on Facebook, look for those images that, you know, stir your stomach, you know, or, you know, make your heart skip a beat. Oh, that waterfall is beautiful, or, you know, that river looks fantastic, or that spot on the beach is perfect, and start creating your individual bucket list. These are all of the places that I'm gonna try and experience and try and see, and fit this into your regular routine. Because I think more often than not, we really do get caught up in, you know, going to work and earning and saving and taking care of family, and we don't necessarily identify the time or find the time to just relax and to breathe. I think that is one of the things that COVID has brought to us. It really has given us that awareness of, you know, kind of standing still, or at least stepping back and enjoying. So create your own bucket list and find the time, create the time where you can do something that is different from your norm or your usual routine, and go and explore and adventure.
Thank you so much for that. And absolutely, COVID has really taught us a number of lessons, and that's certainly one of them. You know, it's just to take the time to stop and to breathe and to rest and relax and to recuperate, re-engage and recharge. So definitely take that point. Tika, how can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook at Being Jamaican. You can also find me on Google. Just type in Being Jamaican in the search and my Google page will come up. You'll be able to see images of past tours. You'll be able to see reviews that persons who would have been on tours would have left for me. And you can also feel free to call on my business line. The number is 876-855-0232.
All right, awesome. And there's our handle right there, over there. Can't put the finger. There we go. So that's how you can contact her. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Tika, for spending the time with us here tonight.
Yeah.
We're glad to see that you are up and running again, and that business is continuing to pick back up with the reopening. We're very happy for that, and we really appreciate your insight and your recommendations, your nuggets, your experiences. It's been awesome, and we wish you all the best as you continue to show Jamaicans and visitors from abroad all the parts of our beautiful island. Of course, have to thank all of our lovely viewers who joined us here tonight. We saw some new faces and some familiar faces. Guys, could we have a virtual round of applause for Tika? As usual, we like to do our
Thank
usual
you.
virtual round of applause for our awesome guests whenever they come on board and share with us their awesome nuggets and experience. It's always valuable. And again, we thank you. I want to, of course, thank my marketing team who are always supporting and working very hard to put these episodes together each week. Thank you, guys. Can't do this without you. And just wishing everybody the very best, continued safety. Everybody, wash your hands, keep your distance, do what you need to do. Yes, we're having a great summer, but we're doing it responsibly. We're doing it safely. We're doing it within the confines of the law.
Yeah.
Please, just saying, we're not encouraging anybody to do anything crazy, right? We just want everybody to, yes, enjoy, relax, refresh, recharge, stay safe, and of course, create wonderful memories. So, yes, thanks everybody. It's been awesome. Have a great rest of the evening. Thanks again, Tika. And until we see everybody next week, Tuesday, take care. Good night.
Bye bye.
Bye.